I thought that President Trump had one of his finest moments over the weekend. And there was one answer that stood out above the rest. Good morning. It is 6:04 on a Monday. We are getting hit hard with these thunderstorms across the metro right now. You just had a tornado warning expire for the Kansas side of the state line. The bulk of these storms right now have just moved across state line, and you are getting hit in all the way from Excelsior Springs down to Blue Springs, Lee Summit, Greenwood, Belton, Peculiar, Harrisonville. It is coming your way, if not right on top of you right now. But it is, once again, just a severe thunderstorm warning. Any tornadic threat has expired as of 5 minutes ago. So a loud thunderstorm, potential for some hail as well in these thunderstorms, but know that the tornadic activity has expired.
And that creek in your backyard is not clearing up anytime soon.
No, it is not. You're right about that, John. We'll be listening in for Wendy's traffic reports. We will have plenty of closures as well, and keep an eye and ear on that throughout the morning right here on KCMO. So you might have an early start this morning. Maybe you're not normally with us at 6 o'clock, but hey, we're here. We're glad you're here. And of course, over the weekend, we are glad that everybody is safe following a White House Correspondents' dinner that did not end up transpiring. After 31-year-old Cole Allen, who wrote a manifesto, traveled from Los Angeles to Chicago to Washington, D.C., with plans to kill people in the administration, thankfully did not come. I mean, he came, relatively close. He was within 50 yards of the ballroom, but he was arrested. Amazingly, he is alive. That is absolutely stunning. Kill it. So that tornado warning just coming down for central Cass County. That would be Peculiar, moving east, Harrisonville, just south of Pleasant Hill, and into the Garden City area after that. Once again, that tornado warning just coming in with this line of thunderstorms that has just crossed state line. And the tornado warning is due west of Peculiar, heading east towards Harrisonville, south of Pleasant Hill. And you just heard that from the National Weather Service there as well. So if that is the area of town you are in this morning and you're just waking up, once again, Peculiar, Harrisonville, Lake Annette, south of Pleasant Hill, north of Garden City, that is the area where the tornado warning has just been issued.
And this is a radar indicated as opposed to an actual spotting of a funnel.
Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead and get off track, but I will say that Mike Thompson's going to be here this morning, and he's got a beef with the National Weather Service. A big beef, and I'm glad that he does because I've been thinking this all spring long, and it's starting to bother me, and it's starting to bother Mike. All right, so hey, Mark, when we get to the podcast later today, if people listen to the podcast, which I know many of you do, let's cut the tornado warning out of it. All right, yeah. It's the beauty of live radio. But you know what? At 2 in the afternoon, people don't need to know about the tornado warning in Peculiar at 6 a.m.
Beep, beep.
Yeah. So just Mark's going to have some extra work today after, he was here last night for the storms. I was here in the studio for the White House Correspondents' dinner on Saturday. It was a busy weekend for KCMO Talk Radio. Okay, so back to what happened on Saturday night. You had, obviously, the President of the United States deal with a third assassination attempt. Now, was this Butler? Was he within a quarter inch of losing his life? No. Was it even what happened on the golf course in Florida? Not necessarily. But you had a crazed individual show up and rush the White House Correspondents' dinner with the intention of taking out the president and or people from the administration. That was his goal. And the president decided that he was going to address the nation and specifically address the media on Saturday night. And I don't believe most presidents would have done this. They would have said, you know what? We've got to just get out of here. Everybody needs to go home. There's nothing I can say right now. But Trump, to his credit, used the moment not to divide, but actually to unite. Now, you might think, oh, come on, Pete. Trump doesn't do that. Listen, I've been covering the guy for 11 years now. And trust me, there are plenty of times when he could have taken the opportunity to unite that he had no interest in doing it. And I don't know what this morning and later today is going to bring. But I will say on Saturday night, when the entire world was watching, and he had the opportunity to look the people in the media who cover him in the eyes and say, this in part happened because of you, which, by the way, I believe it did. Okay, I believe that the coverage of this guy going back a decade has led to 3 assassination attempts against him. He didn't do that. In fact, take a listen to this question. This, to me, is one of the most important answers President Trump has ever given, especially considering the circumstances during his time in public office. Here's what he said to Peter Doocy of Fox News.
I ask respectfully, why do you think this keeps happening to you?
Well, you know, I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, I mean, you go through the people that have gone through this, where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names here, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughingstock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that. So I think that's the answer, Peter.
Donald Trump could have looked every single one of these media folks in the eyes, and they were all there. All the big usual folks that cover them. They're in their gowns. They're not in their usual press attire. They were all supposed to be together tonight for this White House Correspondents' dinner. Could have looked at all of them and said, you know what? When Peter Doocy says, why does this keep happening? Trump could have easily said, because of you. And not Peter Doocy of Fox News, but I mean you, the people in this room. And the unfair coverage and the irresponsible, not even unfair, the irresponsible coverage that I have received going back to 2015. That you can't sit here and say is directly responsible for somebody, you know, who is crazy trying to kill me, but it's not a coincidence that nobody has dealt with this kind of press coverage in this kind of press environment like Donald Trump has, and there have been 3 assassination attempts against him. That's not a coincidence. And Trump could have easily done that, and you know what? After he had to get ushered out of another event, this time he's sitting with his wife, Melania, standing there in the press briefing room. He's got to have the adrenaline pumping like absolutely nothing else. If he chose that moment to say that, I could not have blamed him. Because this was not just the politicians who obviously take some chance when they run for elected office and win with their lives, sad to say, but they do. They were also with their significant others in many cases. This was supposed to be a relaxed, somewhat family environment. And because the temperature is too darn high in this country, and people have for years been talking about Donald Trump like he's Hitler, which is just beyond crass and gross and irresponsible, you get another crazed lunatic out there trying to take the guy's life. And that's what he was when you read the manifesto. He was motivated by all the things that social media have been feeding him and many in the media have been feeding him, whether it's tied to any of the Epstein insanity or anything else that has been a hot button issue over the last especially 15 months or so. And it's got to stop. And to be clear, the amount of silence on this, especially from people locally here in the Kansas City area, is beyond disturbing. And I will share who that is with you coming up here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as we kick it off on a Monday morning. And as we kick it off, there is a tornado warning for parts of Cass County. Once again, this is a radar-indicated tornado warning that is moving across just south of Peculiar right now. It is about 5 minutes away from Harrisonville. So once again, better safe than sorry if you are in Harrisonville right now, where this radar-indicated tornado warning is set to expire in 15 minutes, bottom of the hour. There is hail up to 3/4 of an inch as well, so it is 5 minutes away from Harrisonville and moving east from there, south of Pleasant Hill towards East Lynn, north of Garden City, and south of Strasburg. Once again, this tornado warning for central Cass County for the next 15 minutes. 913-408-7957. We have some great guests this morning. Bill O'Reilly was at that White House Correspondents' Dinner. He will be here at 8 o'clock. Do not miss that on 95.7 FM. And the House Majority Leader Steve Scalise will be here at 9 o'clock this morning. He was also in attendance on Saturday night. So you want to be locked in this morning. We're monitoring, of course, the severe weather and anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. And we just lost some power here in the studio as well. 913-408-7957. Just monitoring that tornado warning that will expire in 8 minutes for central Cass County. Once again, it started just over Lake Annette, south of Peculiar, moved east. It is right over Harrisonville right now, and due east from there in central Cass County to East Lynn, just north of Garden City, south of Strasburg. So that tornado warning in effect for another 8 minutes. Now, as we continue to also talk about the fallout from the White House Correspondents' dinner from Saturday night, after there was another assassination attempt against the President of the United States, I think it's important to note that here in Kansas City, we have not seen anything on social media from the most prominent Democrats in and around Kansas City. Not a peep. Sharice Davids has a post up here in the last, she's got 2 posts up in the last 19 hours. First one came here 19 hours ago, so we're looking at what, say 11 o'clock yesterday morning. Her first post since the third assassination attempt against the President of the United States reads, 370 infrastructure projects are underway in Kansas 3 to fix roads, upgrade bridges, and improve transit and water systems. All thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law. That's what investing in our communities looks like. Wow. Okay, way to misread the room, ma'am. Totally misreading the room. And then 14 hours ago, Sharice Davids writes, healthcare costs are too high and providers are stretched thin. Appreciate the partnership with Kansas hospitals to strengthen our workforce and make care more affordable for Kansans. And it's a picture of her and a bunch of random people in Washington, D.C. First off, can you say Obamacare with me there, Congresswoman, please? Can you try that for a minute? That would be great. But secondarily, it's like we just dealt with a third assassination attempt of the President of the United States who, you know, Sharice Davids has not had really nasty rhetoric, at least by comparison to some of her colleagues. But still, can you at least address it? Is that too much to ask? I guess the answer is yes, it is. So she had nothing up despite having a couple of posts. Emmanuel Cleaver, forget it. He's lucky to know what day of the week it is. So he had nothing up there, despite the fact that, you know, he's had some pretty nasty rhetoric about the President of the United States over the last, 15 to 16 months since Trump got back into office. He has some nasty things to say, and Emmanuel Cleaver has not had a post up since, let's see, that would be Friday for Emmanuel Cleaver. Shall we check in on Laura Kelly together, the governor of Kansas? What do you say? We'll give Governor Laura Kelly a look. Nothing from Laura Kelly as well tied to what happened on Saturday night. She has a couple of posts about grants for domestic violence, and she also has a post about the 2026 Kansas Department of Health and Environment Champions of the Year, whatever that means. My goodness gracious.
Nobody cares.
And what do you say? Quentin Lucas usually has a lot to say about things, right? Should we check in on Quentin Lucas? He's got a picture of his kid's food plate from last night, which includes toy trucks and a couple of French toast sticks or something like that. I don't know. But nothing about what happened on Saturday night either. I like the kids' content. I don't mind that. But it's like, once again, the 4 most prominent Democrats in and around Kansas City have absolutely nothing to say publicly on their social media about another assassination attempt against President Trump on Saturday night. Not a peep. 913-408-7957. That's the text line and the studio line on KCMO. Toby's in Overland Park. Hello, Toby. Good morning. Toby, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. Heck of a morning out in Overland Park.
Yeah, man. Stay safe out there. What's going on?
Well, the way that Trump responded, that's typical. Republicans seem to defend and never attack. That's all normal. But I was thinking, if they were to succeed in assassinating Trump, how do you think the country is going to react?
I think it will be Charlie Kirk on steroids.
It could be really, 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 really bad.
Well, that's what I mean. I
You
agree.
talk about the severe right-wing people, they wouldn't even ask questions. I mean, that would make the right go to violence so fast. My head swims thinking about it.
But when you say violence, like, what do you mean? You mean like attacking Democrats? Like, I don't sit
No,
here.
no, 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 no. I think the right wings will just go out and attack things. They'll just. I don't. Most of us, we're not going to go out and attack. We're going to be upset. We're going to be extremely enraged. But I think you'll see basically the left in our right wing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't wish that. I pray against it. And obviously doing a hypothetical on whether or not, what happens if God forbid the worst of the worst were to come. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on it, but I know people think about it, and I think about it too. I do. It's scary, it's dangerous, it's concerning. It's all those things wrapped into one. There's no doubt about it. So, God willing, that will never happen, right? But we gotta, let's be honest. Temperature's got to be brought down. And right now, over the last 15 months, it starts with one side of the political aisle. Tornado warning expires in 2 minutes for East Central Cass County. Keep an eye on that, and we will monitor the weather all morning long right here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, speaking of things to monitor, you want to upgrade that bathroom. You want to get something done finally with the kitchen. There's one call to make this morning on a Monday morning, and that is CMP Construction. Okay, CM as in Michael, P Construction. That's the company here in Kansas City that we are relatively new partners with, but I've known Chris and Teresa, who run CMP Construction, for a long time. They are longtime KCMO listeners. They were with us last summer. If you were at the Guy Benson event when he came to town, they were right at our table there with 200 other KCMO listeners. So they love the station. They love this audience. And they want you to know that when it comes to family-owned businesses and Kansas City companies, that's what CMP Construction is. It's not some big corporate remodeler. It's a team that treats your home the way that they would treat their own. Kitchens, bathrooms, basements, full remodels. CMP Construction focuses on quality craftsmanship, clear communication, and doing things the right way. Their slogan is building trust one room at a time, because that's what they do. It's a family-first approach, and it's why Kansas City keeps coming back. Find all their awesome work at cmpremodel.com, cmpremodel.com, and start the conversation today.
Vince Colonnese here. Join me for your lunch hour from 11 to 2 on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
.634. It's already been a busy Monday across Kansas City. We've got these severe thunderstorms that have been moving across the metro. I started this morning out in the Lawrence area just before 5 o'clock and now shifting really out of Cass County to the south, leaving Jackson County into Lafayette County as well. So things are starting to move out of our metro, but we did have earlier this morning some tornado warnings across both sides of state line. Those have expired for the immediate listening area. 635, great to have you here, 913-408-7957. I want to play this from Saturday night. President Trump, of course, dealing with another assassination attempt, this one coming at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Bill O'Reilly is going to join me at 8 o'clock. He was in the room on Saturday night. So was Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader. He will be here at 9 o'clock on KCMO. But on Saturday night, I'm up here at the radio station on the breaking news. Got up here at about 8:30. I was putting the kids to bed at 8 o'clock, and I didn't realize my phone was on, but it was on, and it wasn't on silent. And I start getting the bing, 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 and the kids are starting to wake up as I'm trying to put them to sleep. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I just silence it in my pocket. And then I leave the room 5 minutes later, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. That's what just happened. So I come up here to the radio station, doing some live coverage, running Fox News' coverage as well. And Keatsman on Saturday night was up in Clay County for their Lincoln Days fundraiser that all these counties in Missouri do every year around this time. I was up in Lafayette County last Friday. All the counties have them. Jackson County had it a couple of weeks ago. Platte County's was last week. Cass County was about 10 days ago. So they all had them here in the last couple of weeks or so. So Keatsman is up in Clay County, and he's up there, and Will Scharf was their keynote speaker. Will Scharf is the White House secretary. He's the guy who reads Trump like what he's about to sign, the executive order. And Will Scharf ran for attorney general here in Missouri. He lost to Andrew Bailey. But he was back in the area and was kind enough to come out here with the folks in Clay County on Saturday night. So Kevin is emceeing the event. He's the master of ceremonies. And, when you're the White House secretary, let's be honest, you got to be on call at all times. So Will Scharf's doing this Q&A with Keatsman. And as he's doing the Q&A with Keatsman, of course, all this news starts breaking. And here was Kevin on Saturday night, which, by the way, our competitors, they were not running anything tied to the breaking news on Saturday night. I'm up here. Kevin's driving home from Clay County's event. We're doing live commentary on KCMO Talk Radio, and the other news stations in town are doing absolutely nothing. So if you missed it Saturday night, here was Keatsman telling the story about what happened in Clay County.
I'm on stage doing a Q&A with Will Scharf. He gave a little address for about 10 minutes, and then we started asking questions. And a couple questions back and forth. We're having a little fun. We had some topics, and it got into Stephen Miller. I asked him about Stephen Miller, and he goes, well, Stephen Miller's a target. He gets hundreds of death threats, and he has a detail and all that. And I said, do you have a detail? And he goes, no, I've only had a couple of death threats. And we're literally talking about security. And about 8 feet away, the table right in front of him, his phone's sitting there, and he goes, like a fire alarm. And he goes, hang on, I got to get that. And everybody laughed, like everybody thought, oh, maybe the president's calling in, because the president's called into some of these events before and they put him on a speaker. And so people thought that's what it was. And he came back up and he goes, it's okay, I can call this person back. It was not the president. So we're literally talking about security when this is going off. About 6 or 7 minutes later, Chris Stegall, formerly of KCMO Talk Radio, who's running for Congress, is sitting a table over, and he walks up in front of the dais, kind of down on his knees. I thought he was going to take a picture of us or something. And he handed me his phone, and the headline was on the phone. And I went, oh my God, I've got a microphone. I'm like, oh my God. I said, here, Will, you read this and I'll fill. And so I started talking to people, and I said, Chris just told me this, showed me this. There's been shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And at that point, Will got down off the stage, and he walked to the back of the room and had to obviously take care of it. He came back in and said the reason he didn't take the first call when it happened was It was one of his aides that is not on the presidential detail tonight. He was off as Will was off, but you're never off. And the person who was in Will's detail with the president apparently had their phone taken or phone jammed at that point, and he let the next person know to call Will and make sure that he was safe and secure, because they call everybody on the team. Like, we know what happened on 9/11. It wasn't one place. It was targeted. We're at war with Iran. It was the most surreal thing you've ever seen, Pete. And Will Scharf is just an absolute stud. He didn't panic. He was calm. Everything was great. He would later tell me, and he had to go. We wrapped the program up early. He shook some hands, took some pictures. He couldn't have been more gracious. And he said, I should have taken that call. I should have known when the phone went out. It was no ring, Pete. The phone didn't ring. It literally was a fire alarm. And I'll just absolutely never forget it. It was crazy.
That is Kevin Keatsman from Saturday night. I'm sure he will have more to discuss coming up at 10 o'clock right here on KCMO Talk Radio, and Uncanceled takes over for us on 95.7 FM. But that was his experience being with the Clay County GOP for their event with Will Scharf. And we all have those human moments, right? Like, people are asking, how did this guy, this shooter, get through security like he did? If you have not seen the video of this guy, Cole Allen, making a mad dash into the basically outside the ballroom area, let's be honest. Yes, there's Secret Service there. Yes, there are metal detectors there. But this guy runs right past them. He runs right past the metal detectors. Secret Service caught off guard. They start firing. It's amazing this guy's alive, which, just real quick sidebar, the people who think this is staged, if you're going to stage it with a Democrat supporter and Kamala Harris voter, you don't let him live to talk about it, okay? So stop with the stage nonsense. I mean, these people are nuts who immediately jump to this thing was staged so Trump could get the ballroom that he was already building anyway. You can't make it up, man. You really can't. But anyway, you have those human moments, whether you're the Secret Service, whether you're Will Scharf in Clay County on Saturday night, where you say, all right, that really important phone call just went off. That bat phone noise went off, but I'll check in on it later. And only after Chris DeGaulle, as Kevin said there, showed his phone on stage to Kevin and Will Scharf, did Will Scharf go, oh, geez, I got to get that. Sorry, got to jump on the phone. We're still flawed human beings. We still let our guard down once in a while, which is why there's no perfect way to protect yourself. And Trump kind of admitted that on Saturday night. Trump wanted to go back out on that stage and run the dinner. Understandably, he couldn't do it. They were not going to let him do it. But he was like, we're going back out there. We're not letting these people scare us into not having our dinner and not having our event. And that's the attitude we had after September 11th, right? We're not going to let the terrorists tell us where to go, when to fly, how to live our lives. And there's an element to that right now as well that we all need to have. It doesn't mean we're going to make stupid decisions. It doesn't mean that, Trump should put himself in harm's way. But it's like anything else. How much do you want to live in fear? And I've never believed in living that way. It doesn't mean you don't take precautions and you don't, do things that are smart for your own safety and your family's safety. But when you're the president of the United States and nobody has obviously more protection than you, and you find yourself dealing with a third assassination attempt in less than 24 months, and even in these situations, it was clear that when it came to security, it probably was not close to as buttoned up as it needed to be. That tells you a lot. And that, on Saturday night, is as much of the story as is anything else. And I know Bill O'Reilly's going to have some thoughts on that when he joins us at 8 o'clock this morning. Do not miss it. Make sure you're listening on 95.7 FM. If you're at the office by then or you're working from home, you can stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Make sure you do that as well. And 1 hour from now, we have some concert tickets to give away, too. Morton Amphitheater. We've never done a giveaway like this. You're going to get to pick from 3 shows: Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, and Hank Williams Jr. All those shows are at Morton Amphitheater coming up this summer, and in 1 hour, it will be your first chance to win tickets here on KCMO. Keatsman will also be giving away tickets at 10:45 all week long.
I was excited when you texted that on Friday. Got
Yeah.
the promo copy written in my mind right now.
Look at that.
95.7 KCMO deals 2 pair from 3 of a kind.
Oh, look
Twice
at you.
daily.
Look at you.
How about that?
You did that without AI. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That sounds like something ChatGPT would come up with, but that's just your brain operating
Hey,
there.
I had to give myself a good prompt.
Yeah,
right?
that is fantastic. I love that.
So that's what we're doing. You get 2 pairs of
Two-
tickets.
2
3 artists.
2 pair a day from KCMO, your choice of 3 artists.
Yep.
That's fantastic. I like how you're doing that, John. That's going to be a good promo. All right, speaking of good promos, I'm going to try to knock it out of the park right here with my friends over at KC Pier. All right, we just got a bunch of rain again across Kansas City. And if you're seeing some leakage or worried about drainage around the house, don't wait any longer. All right? KC Pier is Kansas City's foundation repair experts. These guys were out at my house last week. They're total pros, okay? They literally go through ABC solution options. They give you options where you can do on your own. Like, they're going to be straight with you, okay? They're going to tell you if there's something you want to do, here's what you can do on your own at like no cost. Here's what we can do. Here's an option B, and then here's an option C as well that, you know, they can obviously make sure everything's taken care of, courtesy of KC Pier. When you call them, a real person in Kansas City picks up the phone, not a call center, not a robot. They're right here in Kansas City, locally owned, locally operated, and every single job is done by one of their trained employees. KC Pier gives you a lifetime transferable warranty, plus 1 and 2 year monitoring visits to make sure your foundation is performing the way it should. We got dumps of rain across the metro here the last 12 hours or so. So this is your time. If something feels off, you're seeing some cracking walls, get ahead of it. Or, God forbid, you do have water in the basement. Protect your home equity. Get KC Pier out for a structural consultation now. KC Pier, Kansas City owned, home of the lifetime warranty. Tell them we sent you here at KCMO Talk Radio. Go to kcpier.com.
From the nation's heartland, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
6:51 on a Monday morning. Glad you're starting off your day and week with us here on KCMO. Let's roll it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Well, we'll start with the weather this morning. We had a line of severe thunderstorms pour across the Kansas City metro, and it has given us, in just the last few hours, 4.5 inches of rain up in Liberty, 3.6 inches of rain in Parkville over the last few hours, and on the Kansas side, Tonganoxie area, getting nearly 4 inches of rain. Once again, tying into my friends over at KC Pier at kcpier.com. If you're having any issues with that water this morning, give them a holler. But we did have some tornado warnings as well that began on the Kansas side of the state line, really all the way southern Johnson County is where the tornado warning began about an hour and 15 minutes ago or so, moved across to Miami County, and then shifted over into Cass County where they had a tornado warning as well, and that expired about a half hour ago. That tornado warning expired. So these storms have moved off to the east, but we're now dealing with flooding issues across the area. So as you're getting up and getting out this morning, make sure you're tuned in. Check the traffic reports here on KCMO. Check your way to work, and be very careful of any water you see on any roads across Kansas City, because flooding is definitely going to be a major concern.
Number 2.
Next up, yesterday, speaking of severe weather, there were some tornado warnings yesterday as well, and 10 structures damaged in Miami County during those Sunday afternoon storms. Miami County Sheriff's Office saying the structural damage ranges from minor to complete destruction. No injuries have been reported as of last night. Officials say power poles and trees damaged as well. Power lines remaining down in the area of North 255th Street and south of 239th Street along Prestonville Road. So that was yesterday afternoon, where the bulk of it, Miami County, Franklin and Miami County have just gotten hammered between the rain, tornadoes, straight line winds, hail. It has been a real rough spring for folks to our south in Franklin and Miami counties.
Number 3.
All right, next up, Phil Lavoda making the announcement on Friday that he is no longer going to be running for a full term as the Jackson County executive. Lavoda served as an interim county executive since October, taking over for Frank White. He announced at the time that he was not going to run for county executive in 2026. But then, late last month, he said before the deadline, I'm going to run because, you know what? I think the county needs me right now. I think he's done a good job. But he basically said in his letter he didn't want to run a full campaign and deal with the nasty politics, so he is dropping out. He will stay on as the interim county executive until, of course, early next year. And we'll be joined by Phil Lavoda and get more details as to why coming up at 7:30 right here on KCMO.
Number 4.
All right, on the national level, the President of the United States, of course, is dealing with the fallout from another assassination attempt on his life at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday. And what we do know at this point is that Cole Allen, the suspect in the case who was arrested, is scheduled to appear in court today and obviously is facing multiple charges. So that is happening today. He will be in court. Authorities took him into custody on Saturday night, and he will be in court for his first appearance coming up later today.
Number 5.
We'll go to Town Topic. What a tragedy. A man is dead after a shooting in a parking lot near Town Topic right on Broadway, according to KCPD. Officers say they were working an off-duty detail at Town Topic when they heard gunshots coming from a parking lot just south of the business at about 4:15 in the morning yesterday on Sunday. Investigators indicate the off-duty officers quickly responded and witnessed several groups of people involved in a confrontation that escalated to gunfire. Off-duty officers note that they immediately called in the shooting, relayed descriptions of people in vehicles believed to be fleeing the area. First responders say they found a man who had been struck by gunfire in the parking lot and began rendering medical aid. He later died from those injuries. It is being investigated as a homicide. And, of course, KCPD is looking for all the information they can get their hands on. Tips hotline 816-474-TIPS. A reward of $25,000 is available for information leading to an arrest and a conviction.
Number 6.
And last but certainly not least, the Royals get a sweep of the Angels yesterday, 11-9 win in 10 innings. Lane Thomas, a walk-off 3-run bomb in the 10th to give the Royals the win and complete the sweep. It was Thomas's first home run of the season and first walk-off RBI of his career. Weather delays. There was like more players than there were fans at the game there in the 10th inning. It was unbelievable to watch. But good for the Royals. Congratulations. They are 11-17, and now the Mets have the worst record in Major League Baseball. So we'll end it there. Unbelievable. There's your 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour, right here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Bill O'Reilly is 1 hour away. Do not miss that conversation. Coming up on KCMO, what has some of the media reaction been to what happened to President Trump? That's next. It was absolutely genius of Trump on Saturday night to not go all in and blame the media, despite the fact that he could have, despite the fact that I would not have blamed him one bit. In fact, I might have done that on Saturday night after a third assassination attempt. He didn't do it. And instead, if you followed some of the people in media who typically are far from supporters or cheerleaders for the President of the United States, they even had to admit Saturday night, yesterday morning, that Trump handled this thing very well. And in fact, it was Trump who was reaching out to them in some instances. Take a listen to this. This is yesterday from ABC News. John Carl was on TV with George Snuffleupagus, and he was talking to him about how Trump called up John Carl. Almost said George Carl. I took George Stephanopoulos and John Carl and got George Carl, who was the head coach of the Seattle Supersonics, right, Mark, back in the 1990s.
Oh, yeah. Sean Kemp, Gary Payton. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those were my guys, man. Anyway, John Carl with George Snuffleupagus, ABC News yesterday, admitting that Trump called him. And you can hear it in John Carl's voice that he's almost taken aback and surprised as he retells this story yesterday morning.
John, your phone rang early this morning?
Yeah, my phone rang shortly after 7 a.m. My landline, George, actually a number that few people call, and it was President Trump calling. He said at first he was calling to see if I was okay with what happened last night. Are you okay? And then he reiterated many of the things he said in his press conference last night, emphasizing the unity that he felt in that moment, that he felt at the dinner before the shooting and certainly after with the people who reached out to him. And he said absolutely, and he was quite firm about this, that dinner must be rescheduled. It must be rescheduled. He knows that I was a former president of the White House Correspondent Association and had worked with him on a dinner that never actually happened back during COVID. And he was saying, we've got to get this dinner back on. It has to happen.
Trump called a journalist, loose use of the term, with an organization that has been brutal towards him over a decade to check in on him. He calls John Carl's landline, which tells you a lot. Who has a landline in 2026? That's the other thing I want to know. But John Carl's got a landline. Trump calls the landline. Hey, John, you okay? Yeah, I'm doing great. All right, we got to get this thing rescheduled. And this leads me to my next point here. You know, as much as obviously I think Trump is disgusted by the general media coverage of his administration and himself, not just because obviously he likes it when people say nice things about him, but also because he thinks it's just beyond unfair. It's dangerous, right? When you have people on TV and cable news talking about Hitler this, fascism that, it's dangerous. It's next level rhetoric. It's not just, I think Trump is wrong and here's why. It's dangerous rhetoric that can trigger, no pun intended, the wrong people to be motivated to do really bad things. We've seen that at, these No Kings protests. I've seen it right here at 435 and 87th Street in Lenexa. Every Saturday morning you see it with some of these losers. And they get the same rhetoric that you see on television, on social media, and elsewhere. And it's disturbing, and the wrong person who's disturbed enough may try to take action against the President of the United States or somebody else in his inner circle and administration. And that's what this guy, Cole Allen, allegedly did on Saturday night. But Trump is still calling these people in the media. And that's because for him, I genuinely think that he knows part of it is a game. And part of it is just they're doing their job to hyper serve their audience, because Trump does understand media uniquely in a way nobody in American political history has. Because as a businessman, he used the media to build his company's brand and his own brand, going back to the late 70s, early 80s in New York City. And then he was a media guy for, years and years when he was hosting The Apprentice. He gets the media game better than any other president in history. And I think he understands the game to some degree. But it doesn't change the fact that the game is getting to the point where his life is in danger on too many occasions.
Well, to your point, it comes natural. He is better than those who are paid to do it, like James Carville.
Yes.
Ergo the hate.
Yeah, and many of the other carnival barkers. Please, Trump could start a radio show the day he leaves office. It'd be the highest rated show in, modern American radio history.
Where's Melania? Let's do Super Bowl picks. Anything.
He would be entertaining in anything that he did because he's an entertainer. So he gets it to a degree what these people do against him, but it doesn't change the fact that it's dangerous. And you've got 300 plus million people in this country, and you get a couple of folks who are buying into the rhetoric, whether it's against Trump, whether it's against Charlie Kirk, whether it's against ICE. And it leads you to a place where suddenly you're in life and death situations here. So John Carl, he didn't have to tell that story. To his credit, he did tell that story yesterday on ABC News. And even Brian Stelter on CNN, who I often have called the human chode, but I won't do it today because he actually was once again fair in his analysis, although I guess I just did. Here's part of what he had to say on Saturday night into Sunday morning.
In a couple minutes before this happened, I was with House Speaker Mike Johnson. I shook Johnson's hand. I was talking to him. And then I was walking across the ballroom, Victor, kind of taking the long way toward the CNN tables because I wanted to see some of my friends and some of my sources. And so I ended up on the ground next to a executive from Comcast, some people from NBC. And in that moment, there was a lot of unity. And I'm thankful that President Trump talked about that unity last night and did not try to heighten the tensions or escalate the situation. He could have very easily gone out there and bashed the press last night and blamed the media for attracting this suspect to the ballroom. But instead, he basically said, we're all in this together. And that's certainly true. And that's how it feels this morning as well.
The good news for Brian Stelter is to hide under the table. He doesn't have to kneel down. He can just continue to stand.
Don't bump your head there.
Yeah, exactly. But even Brian Stelter is saying, hey, listen, the president shows unity on Saturday night. And that's what he did. We were airing it right here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. No other radio station in Kansas City had the president's speech on Saturday night. Following that moment and that scare at the Correspondent's dinner, nobody else was in live coverage in this town. It was the only place to hear it. And I didn't know what Trump was going to do. I didn't know if he was going to go up there and be bombastic and start literally laying into the people in that press corps. He didn't do it. It was a surreal scene as he's up there in the tuxedo. And the entire press corps is in their gowns and tuxes, and they're asking questions of the president of the United States. And in many ways, Trump felt like, and I don't mean this in a mob sense, I mean it in a family sense, he felt like the godfather in that room. Like he owned the room. He owned the room not just with his administration standing there behind him, but he owned the room when it came to him kind of being that figure that even the press was looking to for some kind of answer. As this larger-than-life figure. And that's what he is. He is a larger-than-life figure. And in that moment, for all the times that Trump has had opportunities to unify, and there have been opportunities when he has chosen not to do it, for better or for worse, that was not Saturday night. And even some of his foes in the media were admitting as much over the last 24 hours. Now, how long does any of this last? I don't know. I'd like to think it would last a while, but recent history would suggest it'll last about 7 minutes. And then it will be on to the next thing and the next controversy and the next scandal. And maybe the temperature turns down for 48 hours, but I see little reason to believe it expands beyond that. 913-408-7957. But hey, you know what? If there's someone who wants to be wrong about that this morning, it's me. Please, it's me. 913-408-7957. That is the text line and the studio line right here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We'll give away your first chance at Morton Amphitheater tickets up in Riverside. And you'll get to pick what show you want to go to. Jason Aldean Luke Bryan or Hank Williams Jr.? Your first chance this morning is 30 minutes away, right here on KCMO. We'll get to your calls as well coming up on 95.7 FM.
from Overland Park to Parkville. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Bill O'Reilly going to be joining this show in 38 minutes, just after 8 o'clock, right here on KCMO. Do not miss it. Bill was at the White House Correspondent's dinner on Saturday night. He was there with his son. And as he wrote in his morning update yesterday, he does a newsletter every day that he sends out to his email list. He writes out here, everyone hit the floor, including my son, who is smarter than I am. I stayed airborne, knowing a crime was underway. So, and at Bill O'Reilly's size, 6'5", he stands out, obviously. So Bill is going to be here and tell his story firsthand. It might be the first interview he's doing on any platform, video or radio, that I've seen since Saturday night. I know he's going on News Nation tonight with Katie Pavlich. I saw News Nation promoting that yesterday, but I don't think Bill has done any other media since Saturday. So his first interview in the wake of Saturday night is going to be here at 8 o'clock on KCMO. And if you're at the office by then, or maybe you're working from home today, you're picking up a coffee right now, just stream it on the Alexa, on the Google Home, or on the KCMO Talk Radio app as well, or the iHeart app, any of them. Just search KCMO, you'll find it there. Okay, so in the wake of what happened, the president hops on 60 Minutes last night. I mean, he gave 60 Minutes an absolute gift after what happened after a third assassination attempt against his life. And this quote, it's 15 seconds, but this clip really summarizes everything very well.
He had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings.
What did security tell you about what may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing no kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that perfect? If I wasn't a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you. This guy's gone out of his way to do a sit-down with 60 Minutes. Once again, no fan of the guy. If he's a king, why is he sitting down with 60 Minutes and not putting them all in jail if he's a king?
With your head.
Yeah, that's king-type stuff here. He's literally sitting there with a media outlet that has really, by and large, not been kind to him. And I'm not saying they have to be kind to him. But if you're a king, you know what you're not doing? You're not putting up with media outlets like 60 freaking Minutes. You're just not doing it. So that's the perfect answer. Oh, what do you make of the fact that, well, first off, of course he was at a No Kings rally. Is that surprising at all? No, it's not surprising at all. Look at who's showing up to these things, okay? I mean, it's led and defined by absolute losers who are not living in the real world. They're just not. We've seen them around Kansas City. 3 times now in the last year they've had these No Kings protests? You go out on a Saturday morning. I don't know if they've still been out there at like 435 and 87th Street as the weather's gotten better, but they were out there in the dead of winter when the girls had events up that way. And, it was all the usual talking points, no kings, and, bleep this guy, bleep that guy, vulgarities all over their cardboard signs, screaming, honking, the whole 9 yards. It was a bunch of deranged people who got to find a hobby. At least that's what I would tell the girls, to try to just, smooth it over and not really get into the details. I'd say, Dad, what are they doing? It seems kind of cold out there. I'm like, they've got to find a hobby. Or the angry old washed-up boomers have to get some grandkids because, boy, they are struggling right now. They need something to keep them busy. Like John last week when he had to take a couple of days off because he had another grandbaby. That's what these people need at these No Kings rallies.
Yeah, that worked out. I thought the baby was going to come at the time I had taken off, but it came before, and I needed that time to recuperate, to your point.
But you know what would have happened? For some of these folks, if they had their first grandkid in the middle of a No Kings protest, they'd be like, sorry, I'll have to be there after the rally. Can't make it. My country needs me.
Can you wait till they assign his birth?
Yeah.
I'll make it.
Oh, man. If you have a they, them, let me know. I'll be there right away. I'll skip the rally if we find out that the doctor has assigned the new grandbaby as a they, them. Don't worry. I'll be there in a heartbeat, okay? So that's the kind of stuff you're getting here. And we can joke about it, but you know what? There are people, the reality is, who take this stuff too far, who are living in an alternative universe. And that's what this guy, Cole Allen, 31 years old, was doing. He went from L.A. to Chicago to Washington, D.C., stayed at the Washington Hilton, set up his guns inside the hotel, right? Which so much for, hey, tough on crime. Got to change those gun laws. I mean, whatever he did, he got from three of the strongest gun law states and cities in the country, L.A., Chicago, Washington, D.C., and did everything he needed to do to try to basically bull rush this White House Correspondents' Dinner and take a shot at the president and others in the administration. And you know what? The security is coming under a lot of scrutiny, and that also is more than fair because you had a hotel that was operating with anybody and everybody in it, and the only security appeared to be right outside the event inside the hotel, which even allowed something like this to transpire. Another security failure, and we'll ask Bill O'Reilly and Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, about that as well. O'Reilly at 8 o'clock, Steve Scalise on the show at 9 o'clock. Coming up, the good, the bad, the ugly, concert tickets of your choice, and Phil Lavoda, Jackson County executive, announcing Friday he's not running for election this year. He'll tell us why next.
From Smithville to Shawnee Mission, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
The news came down on Friday that current interim county executive in Jackson County, Missouri, Phil Levoda, was no longer going to be seeking election coming up later this year after he had filed last month. Phil Levoda, kind enough to join us here for a few minutes on KCMO Talk Radio. Phil, good morning. Happy Monday. What did this decision ultimately come down to for you?
You know, basically, when I was asked to serve the remaining term back in October, I didn't want to do it. But after realizing someone needed to jump in after this previous exec got recalled, I agreed to it. But at the time, I told anyone and everyone I didn't want to run for 4 more years. And that actually never changed. But as filing was coming up, I had so many people encouraging me to reconsider. I needed to file so I could still think about it. I still didn't want to do it, but I did enter my name at the last minute to give me some more time to decide. Because we've made some strides in restoring some confidence and stability in Jackson County. I mean, sure, there's a long way to go. But after time reflecting, what I did realize that serving as county executive is a responsibility that, when done properly, demands at least 60 hours a week minimum. And I've been doing that for 6 months. So I know if I'm doing it right, it leaves me no time for the rigorous campaigning required to win a race. And I'm more than confident I would win. But pursuing it, frankly, it would just come to me not providing the best service for the county. And I realized balancing both responsibly governing and the rigor campaign is simply not possible without compromising quality. And I made a commitment to be 100% involved, and the campaign wouldn't allow me to do it. And it's just not fair to the people, regardless of whether I would serve well as the next executive. It's just that simple.
Okay, well, a lot of people will believe that you have, and do believe that you have done a good job here the last 6 months, taking over for Frank White on some of the property tax issues and other things that you've dealt with. So if you're not going to run coming up this year, do you plan to support somebody in the race?
And I just hope that the candidate, whoever wins, will see the progress we made and follow my policies of getting tax credits back to the people, making sure assessments are fair and open. And I will be very vocal on who I will support.
Okay. So do you have a timeline on that decision, by the way?
No, I'm just back to refocusing on getting back to work. You know, in December of this year, I will have served more than a year in this term. And, you know, at this point in my life, I want to focus on enjoying life without the unpleasantries that comes with public political service and campaigning. But I want to focus on making sure in the next 8 months of my term, I'm fine-tuning Jackson County. It is a mess. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it when I got in, but there's a long way to go. So I'm focusing on being the county executive for the next 8 months. I'm prioritizing my own well-being and my family in moving forward. And the biggest regret I'm going to have is letting people down that said I did a good job and think I would have done a good job. So I am being selfish, but I'll tell you what, I want anyone that is listening, I want to make sure they understand my commitment to stability and professionalism and leaving this office in better shape than I found it remains unwavering, and I will keep working hard.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, Duran McGee, who, of course, is on the legislature in Jackson County, he also recently announced he's not going to be running for county executive. So you're out, he's out. That means there are 6 candidates remaining on the ballot, at least, and that is Stacey Lake, Democrat, Ryan Meyer, Democrat, Holmes Osborne, Democrat, Bill Baird, Democrat, and Eric Steffen, Democrat, along with Alan Rolfing, who is a Republican. You're obviously a registered Democrat. I think most people would say you have not done your job at all with any kind of political bias one way or the other. You've just done the basic and common sense things people want out of their county executive. Is it fair to say, though, that your plan would be to endorse somebody who also has a D next to their name to try to whittle it down?
Well, of course, I would endorse a Democrat. I hope it's a moderate Democrat. I like the people who have told me that you have gotten in there, you've been an executive, and you haven't been partisan. I think that's important in the county executive. But remember, Pete, since I'm the incumbent and I withdrew, this action will allow the filing period to open back up for 5 days. So there'll be 5 more days. So anybody else in the world that lives in Jackson County, of course, that wants to run for county executives can have the ability to do that for the next 5 days.
So that's this week.
By Friday, end of business Friday.
Okay.
That's this week. By the end of Friday, then we'll know what the cast of characters looks like to be your next Jackson County executive.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Let me ask you this then. Do you expect other prominent names, winnable names, to jump into the race this week?
There's been some names that circulated, and what I did is I didn't file the first day of filing because I still didn't want to do it, and I waited to the very last day because I didn't want to get anyone that wanted to do it and prohibit them from running thinking I was going to run. But I think enough people thought I was going to run. The fact that I'm not in, and since I was the front runner, I think there's some people that will be thinking about it, so I wouldn't be surprised if some other people, their names might show up.
Do you think that the next county executive should be someone like you who really doesn't have a lot of political background or experience and is more of a, business person? You've obviously got a legal background as well. Do you think those are qualities and traits that would benefit the next county executive?
For sure. I'll tell you, there's no one been a county executive like me. I do have the political experience. I have been involved in politics all my life, but just haven't been running. But I've ran a small business. I am a business person. I am a moderate, and I believe that most people believe we need good schools, low taxes, good law enforcement. And the far right wing, the far left wing that keeps all of us divisive and makes politics nasty and makes the reason I don't want to run is the problem. So I sure hope the next person in there remembers that, and then the next person, county executive, isn't leading with no kings or isn't leading with right-wing stuff either, that is getting there and doing the best thing for tax policy for Jackson County. It's just that simple.
Phil Lavoda is the interim county executive. He announced in a letter on Friday he is not going to seek election coming up this year. So now with a few months left then in your term, what do you want this 16-month window of your tenure as Jackson County executive to be defined by, and what is still left to do?
Tax relief, tax relief, tax relief. We have done great wonders in rolling back the assessments of 23, 24. We're going to give tax credits to people that were overcharged. We just got to do that. And now moving forward, we have to make sure the next assessment cycle, which starts in 27, is fair, transparent, follows the law, and gives people their due process. Because not only were they treated bad with their assessments, but then when they tried to complain or appeal to Jackson County and the Board of Equalization, they were treated horribly. So that's my next focus for the next remaining months of my term, is make sure the next assessment is not as bad as it was.
So, and that's coming up this year. So, wow, it's already been 2 years since that last assessment. So that'll be this year.
Yep. So 27 will start the 27 cycle. So we need to get ready to go for it now.
Okay. All right. So it all happens right now. What about the ongoing litigation then between yourself, the schools, the municipalities? Where are we at on that, since it's been a couple of weeks since we spoke on that front? Just remind people where the story's at and where it all goes from here.
The problem in 23 and 24, a lot of Jackson County residents were overcharged with taxes. And now that we've rolled back those assessments, we see how much they overcharged. And I'd like to give them that money back. We don't have it. It was sent to the school districts, the fire protection districts, library districts back then. The money isn't there to refund. So I think the only way to make them fair is to give tax credits. So people will have a tax credit on their bill of what their overage was. Now, what that does, though, collaterally, it affects a lot of budgets. It affects the school district budget, the libraries. It even affects Jackson County's budget. And the school districts are upset about it, like they should be. I understand it, and I've had meetings with them about it. We've talked about the fact that they're going to have less money coming in than they would have. We've had some disagreements on how to proceed. They want me not to give tax credits, and that was the last conversation we had was simply just don't give the tax credits. No other solutions. And my response was, I won't do that. I'm going to give tax relief and give these people back their credits. Now, I still understand how important school districts are in our schools to our community. I do not want to fight with them. I want to be their partner, but I need solutions. So I hope we continue to have a dialogue and figure out if there's a solution, how we can fix it, and I'm looking forward to that. But not giving tax credits to Jackson County residents who are overcharged, that's just a non-starter.
All right, Phil Lavoda on KCMO. Phil, thank you as always for the time, and we'll be watching the next few days and see maybe who else files in this race. It's going to be interesting. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, there you go. Phil Lavoda on KCMO. Good to have him on the show. Listen, I think he's done a great job for Jackson County. That's me. And I do believe he would have walked into 4 more years for whatever reason, or you heard from him as to why he decided not to do this anymore and why he didn't want to run. But this is on the text line, 913-408-7957. Wow, Pete, Phil Lavoda says he's working more than 60 hours a week for the people of Jackson County, while Frank White was spending his time with the Monarchs. I'm sorry to see Phil withdraw his name. He's doing an excellent job. Think about that. You had the county executive for almost 8 years in Jackson County, coaching first base in South Dakota for an independent league baseball team. instead of working for the people of Jackson County. That's what Frank White got away with for years. And really nobody said anything except for this show. Nobody. Certainly nobody brought it up like they should have. And I will never understand why. You had people getting taxed out of their homes in Jackson County by, the hundreds and thousands, getting overtaxed at the very least by the thousands. And you had the county executive pointing the finger at everybody else and coaching first base for a minor league, not a minor league, an independent league team that, let's be honest, most people don't care one bit about. What an absolute disgrace. We'll get to our good, bad, and ugly coming up on KCMO just after 8 o'clock. Bill O'Reilly is going to be here. He was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and he is going to join us for his first reaction to what happened on Saturday night right here on KCMO. Do not miss it. The good, the bad, and the ugly is next. But right now, the seventh caller will get a chance to the concert of your choice, Riverside, opening up this summer. You will get to pick either Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, or Hank Williams Jr. So that is coming up here right now. Seventh caller, 913-408-7957. That's how you win those tickets right now. Your choice of Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, or Hank Williams Jr., courtesy of KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, right after Pete Mundo and Mundo in the Morning.
Well, is it fair to say that today's winner decided to go with the Jason Aldean tickets?
That would be correct, sir.
All
I'm
right.
not sure how you guessed that. Amazing.
All right, who's our winner?
Yeah, Lansing, Kansas City chose Jason Aldean. That show's coming up July 25th at Morton Amphitheater. We also got tickets for, I think it's July 8th, Luke Bryan, and then a September show, maybe the 19th or so for Hank Jr. You can pick a pair from one of those three.
Yeah, next chance to win with Keatsman at 10:45.
Another chance to win today.
Yes. Luke Bryan is Thursday, July 9th. You've got Aldean on Saturday, July 25th, and Hank Williams Jr. is on Saturday, September the 19th.
19th,
So
got him. All right.
I'm excited to see what this Morton Amphitheater is all about. I will be there for a show that I will tell you about at a later date. I can't tell you why. I have to wait, though.
Interesting.
Yes. I'll explain to you guys during the break, but I gotta
Is it
save
a band
it.
you want to see?
Oh, very much so.
Or just when you're interested?
No,
Okay.
no, very
Excellent.
much.
That's
very
always
much.
a good thing.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by it. So anyway, it's that time of the week. Let's get to it.
It's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, let's start with the good. All right, we have not been able to say that this has been a good for really any stretch of the first few weeks of the season. The Royals getting a sweep. Whoa, what is going on here? Holy smokes. Wow, the Royals sweep the Angels last night with an 11-9 win in 10 innings. It was Lane Thomas with a 3-run bomb in the bottom of the 10th to deliver the victory for Kansas City. There were about 7 people left in the stands after, of course, a weather delay yesterday. But you know what? All 7 of you seemed to have a great time, and you deserved it. It was Lane Thomas's first home run of the season, first walk-off RBI of his career, as the Royals came back from a 7-4 deficit, which is when the game got delayed in the bottom of the 7th due to that severe weather. And then they turned it on from there on out. And they get a win in extra innings. They are now 11-17 on the season. And how about this, guys? They're 3.5 games out of first place.
It's crazy.
How about that?
3.5 games.
5 games in a row that they've scored 6 runs or more, which is absolutely insane, too, because Hawaiian Bros gives a free plate after 6 runs or more. You know I'm on that.
I didn't even know that. But of
Gotta
course,
have the app.
Mark's got every deal in town.
Hooked up, man.
He really does. You're unbelievable. But you know what? Good for you, Mark. I knew you'd be on that.
When Harrison Butker kicks one to the west, field goal.
Yeah.
Just see what happens here.
It's got to be a stiff 15-mile-an-hour breeze coming from the east.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, 11-17. They are 3.5 games out of first place because the AL Central is very mediocre. So you've got first place right now. Cleveland and Detroit are 15-14. So no one appears to be really any good in this division. And you know what? We're going to turn the calendar to May, and the Royals should be right in it. They've got the A's this week on the road. I mean, if you can't at least keep that momentum going against the whatever they are A's, Sacramento A's these days, I don't know what you can get going with. So, and then it's Mark's Mariners this weekend, which will be tricky. But either way, there's the good. The bad from the weekend. We have to obviously go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and what happened on Saturday night, where, thank goodness, nobody was hurt. But the White House Correspondents' Dinner was obviously postponed on Saturday night due to a 31-year-old, Cole Allen, a teacher from just outside of Los Angeles, and the December 2024 Teacher of the Month, which, gosh, that is just so telling on so many levels, decides to travel to Washington, D.C. and try to assassinate the President of the United States. He bull rushes the entrance to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, catches all the Secret Service off guard. There are security concerns all over the place, which we'll ask Bill O'Reilly coming up in 10 minutes about. And amazingly, this guy survives. Not only that, but the fallout after that is people talking about how this is a staged event by the President of the United States. Hey, memo to those of you who are a little thick-headed. If it's a staged event, You don't take somebody who has donated to Act Blue, is a registered Democrat, and a Kamala Harris voter, and with all due respect, keep them alive. You don't do that with a staged event. Give it up. Stop. The way that, without any information or any facts to back it up, you had like media personalities in this town, in Kansas City, writing staged in reaction to what happened on Saturday night. And speaking of reaction on Saturday night, we're live on KCMO on Saturday night. Keatsman's calling in. I'm here in the studio. Keatsman's calling in, driving home from the Clay County GOP event that he was at with Will Scharf, the White House secretary, telling his story. And, you got Tech Talk on the competitors. You got the Late Night Blues Show, whatever, on some other news station. It was a joke. An absolute joke. But you know what? It's also par for the course for some of these other media outlets and radio stations in this town.
We might get some exclusive audio from Keatsman from his time there at the event.
That's right.
Show.
Kevin's going to have a great show coming up at 10 o'clock. Do not miss it. The ugly from the weekend is what happened at Town Topic. You know, you had this homicide take place yesterday morning at about 4:15. And what happened is off-duty officers were working the area when they heard gunshots coming from a parking lot just to the south of Town Topic. And, it's a parking lot I'm sure many of us have parked in when there's overflow in the main lot and you got to find somewhere to park to go get a nice greasy hamburger. And 4:15 in the morning yesterday, off-duty officers responded and witnessed several groups of people involved in a confrontation that escalated to gunfire. One person died. There are right now no suspects in custody. They want you to call the TIPS hotline. And this is a prime part of downtown. This will be, of course, stone's throw away from where the Royals want to build a new stadium. People are going to go to Town Topic after games. And you still have all these problems in these parts of Kansas City, and they're not getting a whole lot better. Even if homicide numbers are down slightly from last year, and they are, we are going into peak crime season. So hopefully things will improve. Bill O'Reilly is coming up next. The good, the bad, and the ugly is in the books. And Bill was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Do not miss it next, right here on 95.7 FM, or stream us at kcmotalkradio.com or on the app. Saturday night, White House Correspondents' Dinner obviously never got off the ground after a suspected assassin ultimately was arrested, taken down, but led to an enormous amount of chaos on Saturday night in Washington, D.C. Our friend, and of course you hear him every morning here on KCMO with the Morning Update, Bill O'Reilly, kind enough to join us for a few minutes on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. We're always streaming on our KCMO Talk Radio app as well. And, of course, you can read them, you can watch them at BillO'Reilly.com. Bill, good morning. What was your experience on Saturday night?
Well, we were there as guests, and we went through the picture-taking interview process. I was there with my son. We posted some pictures on BillO'Reilly.com. And then we went into the ballroom, and I just happened to be standing by the open doors that where you enter when you come down from an escalator, and I heard 4 pops, and I still don't know the extent of who shot first or what that is happening. We're in the process of investigating that to find out. But anyway, these 4 pops were very loud, and everybody in the room could hear them. And then right after that, the Secret Service guys ran into the room to remove the president. Everybody hit the floor, everybody except me, because I had to see the story. And my son's under the floor. I looked down. I go, "How is it under there? What are you doing?" And he goes, "You're crazy. You'll be the first one hit." And I said, "Look, I've been doing this 50 years. All right, if they want to take me, they can take me." But then the president obviously was removed, and he went out the back way, and they grabbed this guy on the second floor of the hotel, which is really what the security problem is at your biggest ballroom. There had to be 1,000 people there, Pete. And then on the floor up, you have hotel guests, and that's where this alleged assassin was staying in the hotel, assembling his firearms, and then he just came down and then started, I guess, blasting away. Obviously, he got off one shot because the Secret Service guy was wounded. Why they didn't shoot him is a real mystery, because you shoot a Secret Service guy, you're dead within a second.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just blast you. But that didn't happen here, and we'll find out why.
So over the last 36 hours or so, Bill O'Reilly here on KCMO, is there an obvious question that you've been thinking about and asking that you feel like the media has not been covering since the story unfolded?
No, I mean, it's a fairly easy story to cover because you already have the guy's what so-called manifesto, where he hates all the Trump people and thinks he's doing a good thing or whatever this loon put down on paper. So you have a motive. You know that he was a lone gunman, and the Secret Service neutralized him, or the city or the marshals upstairs. Again, we don't know that portion of the story. I assume we'll get it fairly soon. And, and then there's the aftermath of the story. The usual suspects run out and blame Trump. I think people know what that game is now, but it's not a complicated story to cover, Pete.
Bill O'Reilly's here with us on KCMO. Have you spoken to anybody, Bill, in the administration since Saturday night? And if so, what have those conversations been like?
I spoke to the president just briefly. He's okay. For a time, though, I think he's getting a little fed up with this. Look, these guys, they know they're well protected. They were. This assassin was nowhere near the dais and couldn't have gotten there. There's no way he could have gotten through because they had so many layers of protection. So they know they're fairly well protected, but it's just, symptomatic of a divided country. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
How surprised, if at all, were you by the president taking kind of the approach of not pointing at the media on Saturday night and saying your rhetoric is leading to this, but rather kind of more of a unifying moment? I thought it was notable when Peter Doocy asked him, why does this keep happening to you? And he could have teed it up for him to say, hey, it's because of people in this room. The president did not do that. Did that surprise you at all on Saturday night?
Yeah, and he made some phone calls to other press people that were conciliatory. I think it was a smart move on his part. He wants to lessen tensions, which is obviously a good thing for a president. He's in the middle of the Iran thing, which I just heard a couple of minutes ago that Iran now is backpedaling on the Straits of Hormuz. He's got to get that done. So it was a smart move to kind of say, all right, everybody calm down here. Mm-hmm. And I hope everybody does.
Well, speaking of everybody, I've got to ask you, I'm sure you've seen Barack Obama's claims that we don't have all the motives of the gunman, and that was part of his elongated statement over the weekend. Are you at all surprised by his reaction, his approach, and some people on the left who have insisted this was a staged event by President Trump?
I don't know if I would take it that way. I think that Barack Obama is inserting himself now as the leader of the Democratic Party. I think that's what's happening here, and that he understands there is no leader, and that he's going to take a position to try to help the Democrats in November at the midterms, and then onward to the presidential election. I think you're going to see more of President Obama do that. But, you know, his statement, I don't think was the wisest statement to make. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, that's right. All right, you mentioned Iran, Bill. While we have you, we haven't talked to you in a few weeks. What is ramping this thing down, you think, ultimately look like, and how important is it for President Trump to get it done sooner than later, given the midterms right around the corner?
Well, he's got to get it done because the polling shows that Americans are not happy with this whole situation. And no matter how you justify it, that polling, when all the polls say pretty much the same thing, is going to affect the vote. So he's got to kind of wind it up in a positive way and then say, see, I told you I could do it. Now the world is a lot safer because Iran isn't going to do X, Y, and Z. There are really two things that have to happen. The weapons inspectors have to be allowed into Iran on a regular basis to see what their nuclear capacity and ballistic missiles are. That's number one. And number two, they got to stop all the Hormuz stuff and basically capitulate to world trade. I think Trump can get it if this report is true, and it just came out. The Hormuz thing looks like it's going America's way. So it's vital that he bring in some kind of reassurance to the American voters that he's in charge and that his policies are the best policies. And so that is his mandate. He's got to do it. I said at the very beginning, Pete, this was a huge gamble on the president's part, and it remains so.
Do you think that they overestimated how tough the Iranians were going to be with Operation Epic Fury?
It's hard to Monday morning quarterback that. I don't get to sit rep every day. I mean, I don't know exactly what their capacity is, the Iranians, to do damage. He knows. And I do know that based upon everything that I have seen, that Iran was feverishly working to get a nuclear device. Mm-hmm. So if that's the litmus test, and you got to confront that, but the world isn't willing to confront it, and so Trump is put in a position where he's standing alone, which is what we're seeing. And then you have the higher gas prices, and that leads to higher food prices, and people in America don't like that, and on and on and on and on. So this is a very complicated matter.
Which one of these issues, is it the gas prices, is it the economy, do you believe, Bill O'Reilly, ultimately defines the outcome of the midterms coming up here in November?
Well, the gas prices will come down hard if the Hormuz thing falls into place. So you'll get relief there fairly quickly as a consumer. But overall inflation, that's a harder one. So, Americans are going to see improvement. There is no Democratic leadership. They don't have a plan B, the Dems. What would they do? Nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously, they wouldn't do anything because Obama didn't do anything and Biden didn't do anything. And by doing anything, I mean they didn't confront the mullahs and let the mullahs pretty much do what they wanted to do. Americans going to care about that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very close race in November.
All right, so to tie it up, Bill, and wrap it back to Saturday night, Confronting the President's obviously a book that you wrote that was a bestseller. Historically speaking, Trump now 3 assassination attempts. Is he the most hated, targeted guy in the nation's history outside of Lincoln, or is there somebody else who is in that ballpark and comes close?
Yeah, I would say outside of Lincoln, President Trump is second in being vilified by his opposition. And people will make the point, well, he does it too, which is, that's valid. But he's in a danger zone. There's no doubt about it. And so people got to take this seriously. I mean, my son looked at me after this fracas was winding down. He goes, I didn't know you were taking me to basic training, Dad.
And Spencer's a tough kid.
Just soak it all in. This is history, which it was.
Yeah.
But I feel terrible for the country because I don't like all of this hatred, and the hatred's certainly not going to go away soon.
Did I hear, too, Bill, on another radio show that you have a new book that's going to be coming out this fall?
Yeah, we got Confronting America, What Has to Change. And that'll be out in mid-September. We just finished it last week.
Wow. All right. Confronting America, What Has to Change, wrapped up last week. There you go. Bill, thank you for your time, as always, on KCMO. Grateful for it, and my best to Spencer. He's a good young man, and I know that, like you said, he was part of history on Saturday night. Glad it worked out okay.
All right, Pete. Thanks for having me.
All right. There you go. Bill O'Reilly. Great to have him on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. He was in the room. Steve Scalise was also in the room, the House Majority Leader. He will join me coming up just after 9 o'clock on 95.7 FM. So you've got 1,000 people in this room. And think about the security setup in this hotel, right? I mean, it's a hotel that's operating still as a hotel. So you've got hundreds of people staying in this hotel who have nothing to do with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And the fact that the access point and the metal detector was inside the hotel, all of 50 yards away from where the event was taking place, where you had not just the president, but you had like 3 or 4 people down when it comes to the line of succession to be president of the United States. All accessible to anybody and everybody within 40 to 50 yards, according to the reports. That's crazy when you think about it. And there are people who want to make this like about Trump getting his ballroom. That is absolutely nuts. 913-408-7957 is how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM, streaming on the app as always. At 8:35 in about 15 minutes, Mike Thompson, Kansas State Senator and longtime meteorologist, is going to be joining us here in studio about the National Weather Service and whether or not they're overdoing it with some of these tornado warnings that have come out over the last couple of weeks. Is there some CYA going on here? We'll get to that and more with Mike Thompson less than 15 minutes from now here on KCMO.
From Smithville to Shawnee Mission, it's Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled, on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Keatsman's coming up at 10. I'm Pete Mundo right here at 8:24 on KCMO 95.7 FM. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Just had Bill O'Reilly on the show, Steve Scalise. House Majority Leader will be here at 9. He was at the White House Correspondent's Dinner on Saturday night as well. Paula's in KCK. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. What's happening?
Well, as I told Mark, I was driving home Saturday night listening to you all on the radio covering the incident in Washington. I got home, turned on the television, and thought I would be able to see something. All 4 of the major networks were covering nothing. They had their regular programming going. And I thought, this is totally ridiculous. There's something really important happening, and they've got a ball game going. I don't understand that.
Well, I don't want to assume the motives, but let's just say it certainly doesn't look good. I knew that we were the only ones in Kansas City radio covering it on Saturday night, and sad to say it doesn't necessarily shock me, but when the other network news operations were not carrying it either, that's pretty pathetic when you think about it.
Well, that's what I thought. And, I finally did go to Fox and, the Fox News Network and got to see something. But I just couldn't believe that was, they're breaking in for minor things all the time, and something really important like this they just didn't cover.
Yep. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I agree. And I don't want to, necessarily pick, thank you, Paula, other news stories that maybe they over-covered. Guthrie. But my goodness. You've got a third assassination attempt against a president. You have the major news event of the weekend, White House Correspondent's Dinner, getting canceled, and the network news is not on it. That's wild. That is absolutely wild. Cody is up north. What's up, Cody? You're on KCMO. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. How are you?
Doing well. What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm running for Congress in the 6th, the goal of replacing Sam Graves. And, I was in the room at the Clay County Lincoln days when we were having a great time. We had Will Sharf there, who's a great guy, good storyteller, great personality. And, we're in the room when his fire alarm goes off on his phone, and everybody goes, "Ooh, is that the big guy calling? Is that the president?" And ultimately, it wasn't. So he said, we'll just put a pause on that. And then a few moments later, Chris DeGaulle, who's also running for this seat, came up with a message. And I'll tell you, the room felt pretty cold at that point. It felt like, when we heard the news in the room of what was going on, it felt a whole like Pennsylvania. It felt like, being in the room when I was at a conference when the Charlie Kirk assassination happened. Like, that room got cold, and you just felt the pain. And somebody said to me, they said, "Does this make you feel afraid to run for Congress?" And I said, well, that's what the left wants, right? Like, they want leaders to be afraid. So everybody in this room should not be afraid. They should be able to, stand up, because the world needs good leaders. So I want to say Keatsman handled like a pro, transitioning off in such a traumatic time for a lot of folks that night. But, man, it's getting crazy out there again.
It is. Well, Cody Oshel, good luck on the campaign trail. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks, Pete.
You bet. And, no doubt, Keatsman, total pro. That's why we have him here at 10 o'clock every morning on KCML. I know he will have more from that story on Saturday night coming up at 10 with Uncanceled. Mike Thompson is here next. Are we overdoing it with the tornado warnings? He'll explain next.
Vince Colonnese here. Join me for your lunch hour from 11 to 2 on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, we are here in studio after another busy weather morning with our good friend. He's now a state senator out of Shawnee, but he spent decades prior to that with a real job as a meteorologist. Mike Thompson's here on KCMO. Hey, Mike.
Good morning, Pete.
I'm sorry, I had to say it, though. I can't say you have a real job now. You had a real job.
I had a real job.
And now you're doing public service, which is how it should be in politics.
Right, it should be. No, you're right. You got to be there for the right reasons.
Yes.
And I think I am.
I absolutely agree. There's no doubt about it. You are. But you and I were texting last week about something that I think is really important. You're obviously a professional at this. I'm an amateur meteorologist at best. I learned on the fly when I was down in Oklahoma from a bunch of meteorologists down there on how to read these radars because I had to for the radio station. And, I kind of got the feel for what's actually tornadic, what's not.
Right.
And it feels like there's been a lot of times this spring, including maybe this morning and last night, when we had tornado warnings that were reported, but you could tell looking at the radar, these were not tornadic storms, Mike. What's going on here?
They don't verify. None of them did yesterday.
No, they're all like just the radar indicated stuff.
What they're doing, here's the deal. With thunderstorms anymore, virtually every thunderstorm seems to get its own severe thunderstorm warning. So it's like a participation trophy for thunderstorms. They show up, they get a warning.
Yeah.
In fact, at 2:30 this morning, I started hearing some thunder, and just old habits die hard. So I jumped up, I looked to the west, and I saw all those thunderstorms. Every single one had a warning. So I thought, okay, I'll look at the radar, and it was nothing. It was the echo tops, the top of the thunderstorms are coming down. The VILs, the vertically integrated liquid, was coming down, so any hail was coming down. It looked like a training event where we get heavy rains, which is what we got this morning. But then I get in here, I talked to John. He said there was a tornado warning early this morning nearby, and there was one out in Marshall County. None of those will verify either. What they're doing, I think, is because the severe thunderstorm warnings have become so meaningless, people just ignore them. And so the only way that they can elevate any urgency on a warning, if there's some strong straight line winds, it seems like they're using a tornado warning to do that. But the concern to me is that, like what happened in Joplin, the false alarm rate was so high that people just they started ignoring the tornado warnings, and people got killed because when there was actually a tornado, they thought, okay, whatever, here we go.
It's the boy who cried wolf.
Exactly. And these are they're putting out warnings on the leading edge of thunderstorms where there are not tornadoes. What you're getting is a strong straight line wind, and when you have on the edges of that wind where the wind speeds are a little bit slower, it creates eddies or little gustnadoes, which are not true tornadoes.
That's not a tornado,
That's
though.
not. It's not even by the definition of the National Weather Service a tornado. It's like when you put your paddle, if you're paddling a canoe, and you paddle through the water and you notice the little swirls on either side of the paddle. That's what's happening, and they're putting tornado warnings out on those, not on the true tornadoes, which is in the updraft part of the storm where there's inflow of air and a strong updraft and a true tornado. And the concern is, if this keeps up, and it appears, and I don't know if they've consciously made a decision to do this or they don't know the difference, or I just don't know what's going on.
And, you've obviously spent decades looking at radar and studying this. I'm, once again, very amateur in this, but from what I've gathered in looking at radar, when you see kind of that upside down or C-shaped thing on the back end of a supercell, that's where you're going to get a hook echo, as they call it, and you're potentially looking at some tornado potentially in there.
Right.
But what we're seeing here is a lot of just straight line storms with the potential for strong straight line winds. And it's like predictable as could be. Yesterday, this morning, radar indicated tornado. And we're getting to the point where, especially this spring, I hear people say we've had a record number of tornado warnings. I don't take it seriously.
No.
How can you?
That's the problem. People will stop.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Here's the thing. If you get a severe thunderstorm warning is supposed to mean something. If if you put out a warning on a thunderstorm, you get 58 plus mile an hour winds or 1 inch hail or something like that. And if it's after dark and you're looking out and you see the trees are going, and even a 45 mile an hour wind can really shake the trees pretty well. And you get a little bit of hail, a little bit of wind. It's scary. I call them SLCs, scary looking storms. And people get frightened by that. And I don't know if society's gotten to the point where they want their hand held through every storm. And maybe the National Weather Service is responding to that. I don't know. But the bottom line is we need to take the emotion out and be objective about what we're warning on, and we're not.
So it seems like to me the issue is in part they're issuing too many severe thunderstorm warnings because not every thunderstorm is necessarily a severe one. Right?
Statistically, 10% of all thunderstorms will become severe. And back in the 70s and 80s, when I started in Oklahoma, and I started in Oklahoma City on the air, in fact, we had the first Doppler radar of any of the stations in the United States. I was very lucky to work with.
Where were you down there?
I was KWTV, Channel 9, Oklahoma City, worked with Gary
England, yeah.
Gary
Legend.
England and I and Kevin Foreman at the time. And Kevin went on to be a preacher, by the way.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, interesting guy.
So we got a preacher, a politician out of you, and then we got England never left. He was there till almost, God bless him, he's passed away, but he was there till the very end.
He was there, and Gary was very sharp.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot, and we had... Back then, we had the old WSR 57s, the actual old radars where you controlled the radar. So you could sweep and you could watch the storms develop. You could watch what they call the bounded weak echo region where the updrafts up into the storm. You could see that V shape developing before a hook echo. So you learn to watch these storms and watch the anatomy of a storm to understand what's happening. I think what's now happening is that the computers control the radars now. They control the volume scans, the sweeps and the tilts of the radar. And so they have all these algorithms that show, wind flow and couplets within the storm. I think people have forgotten that just because you see a couplet where the winds are spinning does not necessarily translate to a tornado. In fact, out of the severe thunderstorms that happen, only a tiny fraction of those, 1% or less, actually become tornadic. So you can have a broad circulation, but it never comes down to the ground and actually creates a tornado.
So how much of this Mike Thompson's here on KCMO? And Gary England, he was in Twister. That was his big cameo.
Yeah, it was funny.
He had a great cameo in Twister. I mean, would you say Gary England's the most famous local weatherman in American history, or is there someone bigger? Got to be him, right?
I can't think of anybody. Well, maybe... probably local, yes.
Local, yes.
Yes. I can think, John Coleman, a WLS in Chicago, but he was also on Good Morning America.
Yeah.
But Gary, anybody who knows anything about severe weather knows Gary.
Yeah, you could put Jim Cantori, but once again, national, not local.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so, I'm just looking at what happened this morning and again yesterday and thinking, is it ratings driven? I hate to think about it from TV, or no, because they're just following the National Weather Service, who has no skin in that game.
Well, the Weather Service has no skin in that game, but the television stations do. I think, if a tornado warning's issued, they're sort of, liable.
They have to go.
I think
ahead.
Because of the FCC license situation, they don't want to lose their license. They don't want to be caught with their pants down and saying, well, you didn't issue this warning. And that used to drive me nuts on the air. I used to, I could see the situations like this, and I would go on and say, hey, there's tornado warning, but, and try to allay some fears, because I don't think there's any good thing about scaring people unnecessarily.
Yeah.
I want to be objective. I always wanted to be objective about that, and But it is becoming ratings driven. You look at all the stations now do this. They have weather alert days or weather warning days.
It's too much.
And they started doing that about the time I was getting out of television. And I am so glad. I watch these poor guys on there now, and I think, oh, my gosh, I'm glad I'm not doing that.
Well, it's like, you're right, and they all do it. I'm not knocking any of them. We've got TV partners here that do it, obviously.
Right.
But I can't take you seriously when you've got 6 weather alert days in a row. It's like, I'm sorry, that's just not possible.
And again, that heightens the awareness for a lot of people, and they expect severe weather.
Yeah.
And especially those who are frightened by it. My kids, when they were little, were caught in I don't know if it was a small tornado or 70, 80 mile an hour wind out on my mom and dad's farm and blew all the windows out of the house, scared them to death. And so even to this day, they get a little bit nervous. And so we sat at home, I've got my radar on, and I text them, say, well, you're okay. One of my daughters down in Texas, she's got the radar scope on her phone, so she watches it all.
Yeah.
But, I understand people do get scared and they want good information. And I don't think we're doing them a good service by hyping every storm, which appears to be the case. And most, like I said, I checked yesterday, of all those tornado warnings, none verified in this area. I think there was one down in Montgomery County. This is far southeast Kansas, down through there. But that made sense because most real tornadoes occur either in a single thunderstorm because it's rotating on its own.
One of those supercells, not these big straight line storms we get.
Exactly. Or the last storm on the end of the line where it's unimpeded, the inflow is unimpeded by other thunderstorms. But once you get a line of thunderstorms, we're talking about outflow. We're talking about heavy rain pushing air out ahead of the storm and creating these little whirlwinds, gustnadoes and eddies, and that's just not where a true tornado actually happens. Now, can you get 70, 80 mile an hour winds? Yes. Can they produce some tree damage or knock a power pole down or something like that? Absolutely.
But if we get back to defining what a severe thunderstorm warning is, then that would theoretically qualify under that umbrella.
Correct. And that's where we're really losing it because by putting a severe thunderstorm warning on everything, literally everything, they are meaningless. And so it's almost forcing them, the National Weather Service, to get people's attention by creating a tornado warning. So what's the next step beyond
What's the
that?
next step? Then
Exactly.
there's the EF4, EF5 Joplin situation, and people are like, screw it. These guys have been
wrong all the time
and crying wolf on this stuff for too long now.
And they don't pay attention, somebody gets killed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
All right, Mike Thompson's here on KCMO. He's now in the Kansas Senate, of course, but he spent his previous life as a longtime meteorologist here in Kansas City. Going to take a quick break, come back, also get to something that is weather, topical this week and has been over the last few days. Kansas City in particular, not having enough weather balloons. People are blaming DOGE cuts for that. What's going on? Mike Thompson on that next.
From the nation's heartland, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Mike Thompson's joining us. A few more minutes. He's in the Kansas Senate at a Shawnee, but for those that may not remember or know, in a prior life, he was a meteorologist here for decades in Kansas City, and we appreciate him joining us on 95.7 FM, KCMO. All right, Mike, something else I want to ask you about here. This was a big topic last week in some anti-Doge circles that the National Weather Service has been cutting staff. There were also cuts in the number of daily balloon launches to gather weather data. The suggestion was that the one tornado we legitimately did get here in the last few weeks was down in Ottawa, Kansas, right? And, they're trying to insinuate that because the Weather Service didn't launch balloons recently, we got surprised by that one tornado we did get down in Ottawa a couple of weeks back, and they're blaming the Doge cuts at the National Weather Service. Are you buying this?
No.
Why not?
No, well, what I think is happening is they're making up all these scary scenarios that, they know they're going to lose some funding, and they don't want to lose the funding, so people are going to die. You don't fund us, you're going to die. I see it with agencies of the state.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you can't do that. We're going to lose. You're not going to be able to, ever get a driver's license ever again or something like that. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And to be honest, for quite some time now, since we've had these next generation of weather satellites, they can do clear air soundings with the satellites. So they can measure the instability of the air, which is what the weather balloons do. The weather balloons are just spot checks on the atmosphere that, kind of confirm, whether or not you've got the air cooling off at a certain rate that would create updrafts or things like that, and gives you some information. But by no means are they the end-all, be-all. And it doesn't cost that much to launch a weather balloon. When I was in the Navy, I was trained to do it. I did some. And so, it's the cost of the balloon and a little bit of helium is what we're talking about.
So you're saying this is not like the big cost saver that people might make it out to be. It's
if they're relying on weather balloons to save some money in the money, we are in big trouble.
Oh, that's funny. Even Representative Sharice Davids, jumped on this bandwagon and said this is outrageous. Tornado warnings were delayed last week in Kansas, and she writes on April 24th. That would have been on Friday. This morning, the administration did it again. Kansans deserve answers because their safety is on the line.
That's somebody who doesn't understand what the data weather balloons do. I mean, once you get into a storm situation, it's really on radar. It's a radar and some of the analyses of the weather stations and things like that, because that's hour by hour. Those weather balloons only go up twice a day. And then sometimes if there's severe weather, they may do an intermediate launch at noon or something like that just to check the stability of the atmosphere. But there are other ways to do it. And so it's not like, that's the only way we can do it. Send up a weather balloon and that gives you one snapshot of the atmosphere. But that's something that evolves constantly, and we can monitor that literally hour by hour or faster. So, the tornadoes, it comes down to detection by radars and hopefully spotters out in the field.
Well, that's a good point, because we also, and I don't know if it's just the lay of the land right now in media, but when I was working down in Oklahoma, I mean, even for our radio station, we had spotters. TV had helicopter spotters, more spotters on the ground. I just don't think that Kansas City has that, maybe because we're not Oklahoma City. I don't know. But you're right. If we have this combination of the National Weather Service overdoing it with warnings, you could kind of combat that with spotters, but we don't have the spotters.
Right. And take a look at yesterday. You had, 3 or 4 tornado warnings yesterday afternoon. That was during the daylight hours.
Yeah.
I didn't see any pictures of a tornado. There was none that verified. And you would think that you would have some of these. There are a bunch of chaser groups around here, people who go out and chase and things of that nature. But they're not going to chase a smart chaser is not going to chase the leading edge of a thunderstorm, because that's not where tornadoes happen. They happen out, where you have a rain-free base where the air is being pulled up inside the thunderstorm. That's where the true chasers go, and not along the leading edge of these storms.
And I hate to say it, but, these TV stations send out some reporter who doesn't know left from right, west from east, north from south. What are you seeing out there? I don't know. I'm just driving through some rain.
I've had that happen. And it's like, let's see, the tornadoes in Belton. Well, I'm up here near KCI.
That does me
I
no
don't think
good.
you're going to get there in time.
One thing, when I would go out chasing, and I only did it a couple of times with emergency managers
Right.
down in the counties down there in Oklahoma, I knew what I didn't know, and I knew to not get in the driver's seat and sit in the back seat and learn a couple of things, and
Right.
that's what I did because that's what I should have been doing in those situations.
Exactly. And I've only, unfortunately, other than Oklahoma City, where I chased, a couple times I chased in helicopters because that was all the toys down there.
Yeah, they got them all.
Some of the most fun I ever had was in Oklahoma City with the storm chasing and all that sort of stuff. But once I became chief meteorologist, they wanted me in the studio, so I can't be out in the field chasing. So, and that's why I got into weather in the first place. I grew up on a farm in southeast Kansas where we never got warnings, and I would sit out on the porch until it just chased me inside. The big purple cloud comes over and the wind picks up, and that's it. So I was. Maybe I'm the anomaly, but I'm not scared of storms at all. It drives my wife nuts. She'll get up and check outside, and I'm just lying in bed going, okay, whatever.
Hey, Mike, it is great to have you in studio. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Pete.
No politics today, just weather, but we got to get on the National Weather Service. Keep it up, Mike. Appreciate
Thank
the time.
you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Steve Scalise, House Majority Leader, was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday. He will join us on KCMO next. Saturday night White House Correspondents' Dinner, of course, got postponed. The president wants to have that rescheduled within 30 days following the assassination attempt. And we are happy to welcome on and say good morning to House Majority Leader Steve Scalise on KCMO Talk Radio. Of course, the congressman is no stranger to political violence himself, going back to the congressional baseball game all those years ago in 2017 when he was shot himself. Congressman, thank you for joining us in Kansas City. Really appreciate your time. What was going through your mind on Saturday night?
Well, Pete, thanks first for having me. And, you know, there were some chaotic moments. I mean, you're getting ready. The president had just come in. They had the national anthem. It was a packed ballroom, ready for what's going to be a real entertaining night at the Correspondent's Dinner. And then all of a sudden, you just hear a lot of clanking. You hear a lot of chaos. You know, you get a lot of tables, not tables, things there that are holding the drinks being knocked over. And people are running up towards the stage, I think, to protect the president. And then you hear, just that there's a shooter. And so you don't really know what's going on. Obviously, memories come back, but your instincts kick in too. And so, we all just get under the table and you're just kind of saying some prayers at that moment. And, and then ultimately we got out of there, and you find out later that the shooter was, taken down by the Secret Service, who did an amazing job keeping him out of. He never got into the actual building, the room where we were in, where the president was, but he got through that magnometer area. But the second layer of protection stopped him, and his intent was to try to kill the president and another people in the administration. It's insane that you still see this happening, Pete. And, it was just another example that, there are really bad people out there that want to hurt this president. And, luckily the night ended without incident. The Secret Service agent that was shot luckily had a bulletproof vest on, and he's doing well, so we keep him in our prayers. But, we just thank God that everybody was okay that night.
When it comes to the security, you mentioned Secret Service doing a great job. I mean, you had the first three people in line, of course, to the presidency. In order of succession, you had, of course, the president, the vice president, Speaker of the House. I don't know if President Pro Tem of the Senate, Chuck Grassley, was there, but he's number 3, I believe, on the list. So given the level of individuals who were at this event on Saturday night, in hindsight, do you think the security was where it needed to be? Or if this does get rescheduled in the next 30 days, does it look very much different?
Well, clearly there are going to be assessments done by the Secret Service, by Congress. We're going to be looking into this as well. And, it doesn't matter who the president's party is. Any president needs the right level of protection. And, all Americans deserve to be safe. But you've seen this president now, a third assassination attempt, and they're just people that are mentally unstable that want to go do this president harm. And obviously, I think we also need to look at the rhetoric and I don't think any president has had more hypercharged words used against him on a regular, daily basis. It's like the left feels like they need to say more incendiary things every single day about Donald Trump. And it was Nazi and Hitler references, and it's, threat to democracy. And every day it's something more hypercharged. And all it takes is one unstable person to try to go do something. And in the case of Donald Trump, he's had 3 people try now to assassinate him. And this man's amazing. President Trump just never relents. I mean, he wanted to come back out to the White House Correspondents' Dinners. They didn't feel Secret Service that they could secure the place in time. And so he ended up holding a press conference at the White House, and yet another example why we need a ballroom at the White House to hold big events like this. You can have it more secure. And obviously if they do it again, and President Trump's vowed to reschedule in the next 30 days, I'm sure they might even be considering a different venue.
Steve Scalise is here, House Majority Leader on KCMO in Kansas City. I want to get your response, Congressman, to Hakeem Jeffries in the House Minority Leader, he posted on X last night, America will not be lectured about civility by far-right extremists in Congress, particularly those who provide aid and comfort to hundreds of violent rioters who brutally beat police officers on January 6th. There will be ample time to vigorously debate the issues of the day. Now is a time to unify. How would you respond to Congressman Jeffries?
Well, you see that kind of gaslighting, and then you end by saying now's the time to unify after gaslighting the President of the United States on the heels of his third assassination attempt because of that kind of language. The people on the left that are saying these hypercharged things need to look in the mirror. There was a Democrat from the Northwest, Perez, who tweeted yesterday, hey, can we all just say people need to stop trying to kill the president? Why can't he just say that? Why cannot Hakeem Jeffries just say something as basic as that instead of gaslighting a whole lot of other things that are nonsensical? And frankly, the comments you're seeing from the far left on a daily basis, that drumbeat is inciting people. You've seen shooters who tried to kill Trump that are using the left's own language, the leaders on the Democrat Party's own language when they write documents about why they wanted to go kill the president. So, again, it's not normal people that do this. It's unhinged people. But if you know that, then shouldn't you also change your rhetoric?
Steve Scalise, you've been in Congress now for almost 20 years. I'm sure it doesn't feel like that. But how much have you seen the threat level increase against yourself and fellow members? And obviously, we all know what you've been through at the congressional baseball game. But what has that been like when it comes to the increase over the last 20 years? And is it driven by divisive politics? Is it also driven by social media? Like, what's the increase been like? And what do you know the drivers of that being?
Well, I think it's a race to the bottom that's driving it, and it's definitely increased. And these are pendulums. Look, you can go back to the 1800s, when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. They would have duels in Congress. They would have fights on the House floor. I sure don't want us to go back to those days. But, you've had times where it was worse, and then you had times where it got more civil, and the pendulum swings. And we're at one of those points where the pendulum's swinging far to the extreme of, this language that is inciting violence. And I think some of it is how people interact. And look, the First Amendment, we were there to celebrate the First Amendment, which we need to, by the way. Our right and ability to disagree, it's one of the things that makes our country great, is that we disagree, but we settle our differences at the ballot box. You don't settle it with violence. And if you're trying to incite violence with your language, you can just go back to Supreme Court cases. You can't yell fire in a movie theater. There's certain things where it crosses the line. And I think some people get on social media and want to say things that are so outrageous because they're just trying to get attention. They're trying to be a circus clown, basically, and not spur debate and provoke thought or bring people. How about this? Isn't persuasion about bringing people to your side? If my argument's better than yours, let's go debate it in the public square. But if you have to insult people's integrity and threaten people personally, you've probably lost the argument. And I think that says a lot about how some people just degrade and go into a race to the bottom at that point. And, social media is the place they do it now. There were other ways they did it in the 1800s. So it's not like it's just social media's fault, but it's how some people allow themselves to be drugged down because they've lost a debate and they want to go after somebody personally. That needs to end.
In the final minute, Steve Scalise, how do Republicans over the next few months hang on to the House of Representatives, and what is that strategy going to look like?
Well, it's number one, continuing to fight for the hardworking people of this country that need somebody to go get this country turned around. They don't believe in hatred every day, and they won't wake up saying, we just want to oppose Donald Trump. We actually want to get the country back together. You look at Mark Alford, your great congressman. Mark's just a happy warrior. He wants to go and get things back on track, but he's also willing to go talk about it in a positive way. He doesn't trash people. He talks about what we're doing to make this country great. We're celebrating their 250th birthday. We've got the King of England in D.C. today and speaking to a joint session of Congress tomorrow. Think how remarkable that was. 250 years ago, we declared our independence from England. His relative, King's relative, and here he is coming to celebrate this great democracy that we enjoy. But it's up to us to keep it going forward and to just build on the greatness and that striving that we always had, that Thomas Jefferson wrote about, to strive to make this a more perfect union. We're not perfect, but we absolutely are the best democracy known to the history of man. God created us, gave us these rights. Let's not blow it.
Well said. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise on KCMO. Steve, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Congressman, and we would love to have you back on in Kansas City again soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me back, Pete. God bless all of you in Kansas City.
Absolutely. Steve Scalise on KCMO. Great to have him on the show. 913-408-7957. All right, next. He mentioned Mark Alford, and we appreciate the congressman helping facilitate Steve Scalise on the show. But what about other members of Congress? What have they said in the wake of Saturday night? Hello? Emmanuel Cleaver, anybody home? Anyone?
You mustard moo.
All right. How about Sharice Davids? Hello, Sharice? No? Okay. Not much going on there either. All right. Well, we'll tell you exactly what they've had to say next here on KCMO.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
So just so we're all on the same page here, Emmanuel Cleaver, Sharice Davids, Quentin Lucas, and Laura Kelly have not made a peep about a third assassination attempt against the President of the United States. The four most prominent Democrats in the Kansas City area, unless I'm missing somebody that I can't think of right now, but those four come to mind.
They sought shelter during the storm.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
They haven't come up yet.
You're right. That's probably what it is. They have not said a word about this from Saturday night. Not a word. Because they're unfazed by it. They want to bury it. They want to move on. And we do have a new post from Sharice Davids up here 18 minutes ago, but shocker, it has nothing to do with another assassination attempt against the president.
Talk about a bombshell.
I
Weather
know.
balloon?
Not about the weather balloons either. No, more weather balloons, according to Sharice Davids. How about this? At least lobby for fewer assassinations with more weather balloons. At least give one and the other.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Do it together. But nothing from Sharice Davids. And Emmanuel Cleaver, I mean, I get it. You know, he can't find the he can't find the keyboard on his computer. He can't. Okay, he needs an aide to help with that. So I get it, but he's been MIA since Friday when he was talking about gas prices and grocery costs, which he seemingly didn't care about from 2021 to 2025. Now he's very concerned about the cost of gas and groceries. So go figure on that front from Emmanuel Cleaver. Nothing whatsoever. And Laura Kelly, maybe she's, an innocent bystander in all this, but I'm not going to give her the benefit of the doubt because everybody, if it cut the other way, I mean, heck, we're sitting here 5+ years after January 6th, which, yes, was an absolute embarrassment to the country. It was an embarrassment to a lot of supporters of the President of the United States. But there was one person who was killed during the January 6th riot, and it was a protester, a rioter, whatever you want to call her. She was the one who was killed directly because of what happened that day. And they're using it 5+ years later. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at 3 assassination attempts against President Trump. The assassination of Charlie Kirk. We've seen ICE agents under attack, right? That's kind of led to where we are today with the funding of DHS and ICE. ICE agents are like, I can't have my face out there because of what it might mean for me and my family. I don't want masked agents around the street, but you tell me when ICE agents are being targeted by people, and we saw that in Dallas, where a guy was on a rooftop, was trying to kill an ICE agent, and instead he killed the detainee. Like, that stuff is happening. Those threats are real. And to sit here today after this political violence that we've had to deal with for the last 18 to 24 months, and not at least rally around the idea, at least pretend for 48 hours like you're rallying around the idea of no political violence. Can't do it. Can't do it. Not interested in doing it. And then what's even more disturbing than that is the narrative that somehow this was a staged event. And before you say it's just crazy people going down the rabbit hole, and it is to some degree, there are people who are more mainstream than you would realize, including some people in Kansas City media who actually posted in real time after the fact that they thought it was staged. I'm not kidding. So let me get this straight. The president wants his ballroom right at the White House, which is already being built. It's not like he needs to get it or something needs to happen to get the ballroom. He's got it. It's being built. But somehow now the theory is that the president, to bring people onto his side regarding a ballroom that he is building, staged an assassin who happened to donate to Act Blue, is a registered Democrat, brought him across the country from California, and then kept him alive in the process to get people on his side on a ballroom that, let's be honest, because we have such an ADD-riddled society, the ballroom was like 27 news cycles ago. No one's really thinking about the ballroom lately. but this was Trump's grand plan. Do I have that right, John?
Pretty much, although
Okay.
I will say it's not Trump's ballroom. It's my ballroom, your ballroom. It's part of the White House and will be there long after Trump is rotting in his grave.
Well, you're right about that. The next Democrat will get to enjoy the ballroom far more than Trump ever
It'll
did.
be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Look what our tax dollars did.
He's going to have like 6 months of this ballroom when it's all said and done.
Exactly.
He's building it for future presidents to, in part, keep them safe, because one thing we've learned is that Washington Hilton, where, coincidentally, Reagan was also shot, it's not set up for the security. They were not checking bags of people checking into the hotel from a security perspective the day before the White House Correspondents' Dinner. We just talked to Steve Scalise about this. You've got the top 3 people in succession to be president of the United States there. Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson. All in one room. While we're, by the way, in the middle of a war with wild political rhetoric, no one's checking bags of people checking into the hotel, and you could easily get into the hotel, no issue, before a checkpoint, which was 1 floor up a staircase from where the ballroom actually was. That is absolutely nuts. And Trump has been a pro about this. He's not pointing the finger at Secret Service. He's praising them, actually. And good for him for doing that and taking the high road on that. But, boy, there are some major questions that should be getting asked about how that security was all set up. Coming up, our caller of the day will be here on KCMO Talk Radio, plus your calls as well at 913-408-7957.
from Smithville to Shawnee Mission. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
9:35 on what has been a busy Monday morning. I don't know if this is one of those shows that feels like it's gone by in like 2 minutes or it's taken 2 days. I don't know. It's got a weird feeling to it right now. Started off with live coverage in the 5 o'clock hour with these tornado warnings.
Right. We started in the middle of the show, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Seemingly.
And then
Jumped
it got
right
into we got interrupted in the opening segment by an EAS tornado warning. And, you know, Bill O'Reilly, Steve Scalise, Mike Thompson, all fantastic guests you can catch on the podcast after the show. Keatsman's going to have an amazing show lined up at 10 o'clock. He was up in Clay County on Saturday night for their Lincoln, Reagan, Trump Days event, which I like it when it's just Lincoln Days. I don't need 7 presidents on the list, okay? I mean, starts with Abe, just call it Lincoln Days, but whatever. I get it. Every county does it differently. But what's his name's up there? Will Scharf, who is the secretary for President Trump, he's the guy who reads the executive orders next to Trump, and then Trump signs the whole thing, and it's always a good dog and pony show. So he ran for attorney general in Missouri. He lost to Andrew Bailey in 2024, but he came back to Missouri to his credit, and he was the guest speaker up there at Clay County the other night, and Keatsman was there as the master of ceremonies. So they're doing a live Q&A when all this is going down, and Kevin will share some of that with you coming up at 10 here on KCMO. But we were here in the studio on Saturday night, and Kevin actually called in on his way home from Clay County. So I will note that no other radio station was covering this in town Saturday evening, which sadly does not shock me. Part of the world that we live in, part of the lay of the land in the media environment right now, but there was nobody else who was covering this. And that'll tee up our caller of the day who added to that conversation right here on KCMO.
It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Paula's in KCK. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. What's happening?
Well, as I told Mark, I was driving home Saturday night listening to you all on the radio covering the incident in Washington. I got home, turned on the television, and thought I would be able to see something. All 4 of the major networks were covering nothing. They had their regular programming going. And I thought, this is totally ridiculous. There's something really important happening, and they've got a ball game going. I don't understand that.
Well, you know, I don't want to assume the motives, but let's just say it certainly doesn't look good. I knew that we were the only ones in Kansas City radio covering it on Saturday night, and sad to say it doesn't necessarily shock me, but when the other network news operations were not carrying it either, that's pretty pathetic when you think about it.
Well, that's what I thought. And, you know, I finally did go to Fox and, you know, the Fox News Network and got to see something. But I just couldn't believe that was, you know, they're breaking in for minor things all the time, and something really important like this they just didn't cover.
Paula's right. How many stories have they overblown? How many stories have they just beaten to death? Like, I think that this story, for me at least, depending on what happens today when Cole Allen shows up for his first court appearance, I don't know if there's a next layer to this story. I don't. I have no idea how the story's going to play out. But if there's not a next part of this story, then at least as of tomorrow, I'm certainly not going to spend the majority of the show on it. I'm not going to do it until there's a new layer or a new angle that obviously I can come up with that I think might be engaging for you. But I'm not going to do the same show tomorrow as today. That would be obviously a waste of your listening time. But the media does that all the time with stories that like just fit a narrative or they think drives ratings. And I guess for some reason on a Saturday night, network news decides, assassination attempt against the president, 3rd time in less than 2 years. What's the big deal? It happens. Yeah, we'll talk about like maybe a little bit of this tomorrow morning on the Sunday shows. That's all you got. And obviously Fox was on it, to its credit. They got on it, and they were our broadcasting partners, as they always are, for the big national breaking news on Saturday night here on KCMO Talk Radio. But you weren't getting a lot. You certainly weren't getting what you would expect to be getting after the president deals with another assassination attempt. And, I saw some people on our Facebook pages and see this on social media being like, well, the shooter, he was like one floor up. Okay, the guy barrels past Secret Service with a gun in his hand, with now a manifesto that has since been released, planning on trying to kill the president of the United States. And your response is to shrug because, well, he didn't get like within 20 feet. He only got within 40 yards. That's going to be your reason to downplay it? So it's like a non-story to you? It is so disturbing. And the president was asked a very simple question on Saturday night. I thought it was his best answer. It came from Peter Ducey, and here was the Q&A.
I ask respectfully, why do you think this keeps happening to you?
Well, I've studied assassinations, and I must tell you, the most impactful people, the people that do the most, you take a look at the people, Abraham Lincoln, you go through the people that have gone through this where they got them. But the people that do the most, the people that make the biggest impact, they're the ones that they go after. They don't go after the ones that don't do much because they like it that way. And when you look at the people that have either, whether it was an attempt or a successful attempt, they're very impactful people. Just take a look at the names here, the big names. And I hate to say I'm honored by that, but I've done a lot. We've done a lot. We've taken this country, and we were a laughingstock for years, and now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We've changed this country, and there are a lot of people that are not happy about that. So I think that's the answer, Peter.
In that moment, President Trump, who has dealt with indictments, FBI raids, assassination attempts, been called every name in the book for a decade now, Hitler, fascist, everything else. Peter Ducey put it on a tee for him to basically look at the people in the room and say, you know what, this is happening because in part of your coverage of me, which is unfair, which is unreasonable, and in too many cases is based in flat out lies. He could have done that. And I'll be honest, while at times I've been critical of how Trump has handled some of his battles with the media, in that moment, with the adrenaline, I would imagine, pumping the way it is, I would not have blamed him one bit for reacting that way in that moment. You got someone trying to kill you for a third time in less than 2 years? I'm not going to judge how you'll react to that, especially since had he reacted that way, you know what? Would have been true. Would have been a fair thing to say. He didn't say it. Instead, he's like, I don't know, Peter, it's a tough job. And, the people that make the biggest impacts are the ones who get targeted the most. And I've come to accept that that's who I am historically in this country and, frankly, in world history. And I'm willing to deal with that to some extent. He could have laid in to those people in their gowns, those people's in their tuxedos. He could have done that. And you know what? I think a lot of people would have cheered him on. And at least I would have sat here this morning and been like, I can't blame him. I understand that approach. He didn't do it. For a guy who people claim doesn't take the high road enough, during one of the most important moments and impromptu speeches and addresses of his time in the White House, he could not have given a better answer. Now, could he try to derail it with a Truth Social post? Sure. He's been known to do that once or twice, but that matters a whole lot more than anything else. Let's go to the phones. Mike is in Olathe as we wrap up the show here. What's up, Mike? Good morning.
I like how you explained it because, when you really dwell on it, it's some deep, heavy stuff going on here. But my thought was when Ducey asked him that question, it was a thoughtful, insightful, not I'm going to set him up and tee him up and get him to respond and get like so many of the questions are. And he responds in kind to the type of question he receives. So he receives a question, and it really helps you understand that this dude isn't just a surfacey guy. He knows history. He knows what he's doing. He knows the risk that he's taking. And it makes him look more like a leader than they ever want him to look like. So thank God Ducey asked a question, but they ask questions to try and get a reaction out of him all the time. Well, they got one on this question, and it was quite good. It was very powerful.
You're right about that. And he even had the percentages. He quoted some percentage on like the percentage of presidents who have been assassinated and how technically based on a percentage basis, it's like the most dangerous job in the country when you think about the fact that 7-ish% of presidents, 4 of them were assassinated, and that doesn't even include those who were shot and survived. So, yeah, it's a dangerous job when you look at it just based on that. And he had those numbers off the top of his head, to your point, Mike, showing that he understands the risk that he takes every single day.
And you look at the people that have been assassinated, King, the Kennedys, Johnson, and even Malcolm X. These people were difference makers, leaders, and the establishment didn't like it. They were to take him out, however there was, and they're trying to take him out. That's why we haven't heard from Cleaver and Charisse and all these other people. Maybe I don't know. They're trying to figure it out. But now he looks even stronger. I just pray that he continues to stay healthy and that we see things for what they really are, not this chaos that we see all the time. But no, anyway, the questions matter.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Just to make it clear with Cleaver and Davids, I don't think that they're wanting any part of this or wanting necessarily to see this happen. I think, one, they don't realize the power of their words because I'm not convinced they're bright enough to understand the power of their words. And then number 2, they just want to downplay it. That's ultimately what it is. They can't fathom the idea of being perceived as giving Trump any kind of a win that makes him look good. They just can't fathom the concept. And I think that's really what this is about. Even though, if Trump has to go through another assassination attempt to get a win and you can't find it to give him one in a roundabout way by just saying this has got to stop, I can't help you. I really can't. We'll wrap up the show with something I just saw here moments ago that should make Mark very happy on a Monday morning. That's next on KCMO.
Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio, right after Pete Mundo and Mundo in the Morning.
Well, here's some news for you, Mark, to lighten it up. Wrapping it up on a Monday morning. New top 25 rankings in college baseball came out. And after KU swept K-State over the weekend, KU baseball is now 11th in the country, man. How about that?
That's impressive.
What did they won? 18 and 19?
18 and 19. I think that was the first time they swept K-State since 1963.
Woo!
So
man,
that's pretty wild.
That is. KU baseball is on the verge of being a top 10 team in America. How about that?
Another Gene Taylor record.
Oh, man. Just getting Kevin all wound up in there before the show. Nebraska, by the way, your second favorite team there, Mark, is 18th in the country, and KU swept Nebraska this year.
That's right. So I think KU's going to host a regional.
Yeah, this is
this point.
This is very weird. Think about the Big 12 teams that are ranked in college baseball: Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. You know, it's not Baylor, it's not TCU, it's not Texas Tech, it's not the Southern schools. Usually, baseball is a Southern sport.
Arizona State.
Yes, it's the schools that have warm weather because that's where the pitchers want to go play baseball in college. That's where they can obviously look better, less worried with injuries. You can get hitters up in the north, but you typically can't get the pitching to be a consistent top 25 team. That's why you see, typically SEC and I would say, I guess now Big Ten
back in the day, Arizona
schools.
State used to be the big baseball school.
Arizona State?
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah. Well, that's my point, though. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah, the Southern teams do much better. I mean, you could have a community college in Florida getting twice as many games as Big 12.
Exactly. And now we sit here and it's like, well, KU and Cincinnati and West Virginia have good baseball, and Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma State and Arizona State are nowhere to be found. Go figure. How about that? Meantime, I saw this story as well to wrap it up. Headline: Jessica Biel told Justin Timberlake she will leave him if he doesn't clean up his act.
Let's go. Let's go.
What are you hoping to? Why are you so excited about that?
She was my big crush in high school.
Oh, she was your big crush. That's a pretty good crush back in high school, Mark. Well, you know what? JT beat you out for her. She has issued an ultimatum, reports the New York Post, that she's had it with his behavior, including his 2024 DWI arrest and his trip to Vegas to host an 8 a.m. invitational golf tournament, according to a new report from the Daily Mail. Two separate eyewitnesses claimed that Timberlake was intoxicated towards the end of the day at the golf tournament last week. Clean it up, JT. Don't lose her. Don't lose her. I would say Mark might swoop in, but Mark's a better man than that, okay?
Yeah. Well, you'll bring
Long
sexy
gone.
back.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your Monday morning. Keatsman has a great story to kick it off for you next.